You just dropped it. There's no pull. Oh, man. Communication is key, man. Communication is key.
Communicate crucial conversations.
You either step out of the conversation or you step in. You got to be comfortable stepping in.
Oh,
So you got a fun icebreaker lined up for us.
always.
Let's hear it.
Icebreaker. Would you rather have an incredible cardiovascular health, endurance, or would you rather be and have average strength? So let's go back. Would you rather be an incredible cardiovascular athlete or have the endurance to do that and be a very average at strength, an average at strength testing, all that kind of stuff? Or would you be the opposite and have incredible strength and very average? Look, there's a thumb. We were just talking about this. And then have the average cardiovascular endurance.
Do you want to go first, Luke?
You were already talking that stuff, saying you already knew what I was going to pick. So
we have to dive into it though, right? So when we pick one, the why behind it I think matters. I'm going with the former. I will take outstanding cardiovascular endurance, stamina, health, and have average strength to accompany it, simply for the sake of quality of life and longevity. I think, and we talked about this on the running episode, running and biking and whatever, swimming, cycling, all those things, heart health and cardiovascular endurance and health, I think, is just often neglected. Like getting steps is great, but you got to kick the intensity up sometimes. So I would lean to the front half. And my suspicion is that you, Luke, might lean towards the latter and go for outstanding physical strength with average cardiovascular capabilities. Fair to say?
Very fair to say. I would love to be strong as shit. I would love to be freaking super strong.
You're ruining a bit of the illusion here, Luke. I think our audience believes you to be strong, incredibly strong. So I think you're...
It's the voice. The voice covers it. If you just listen to the podcast and you don't know who I am or anything like that, like, man, this guy's super strong.
Yeah,
I get that a lot.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you do, Luke. I mean, from someone other than me, you mean? Because I hype you up all the time.
Besides Ashley, there's not very many people out there. But I would say cardio is one of those things that, like, you know, you can just do it. It doesn't mean that it's like I feel like you hit a block in strength training and heavy strength training and then you're done. But like if you're just somebody that's out of shape and like your cardio isn't that great, you can just keep going. Like if you're really fat, you could just keep going on a triathlon, on like a why can't I think right now? Like if I was going to do the Columbus Marathon, I could just keep going. It would suck, but like I could get it done. Versus like, you know what I mean?
If I may, I think what you're, and correct me if I'm misunderstanding here. What you're saying is gains on strength hit a plateau, and it's easy to get discouraged from pushing past that plateau. Yes. Whereas cardiovascular gains can be accomplished with lower intensity, less strain on the system. Typically, is that kind of what you're getting at?
There it is. You're like my interpreter, like the you remember like the Obama interpreter on Key and Peele? This is what this is. This is like that back and forth there.
Was he the anger interpreter?
That's what it was, the anger interpreter.
Yeah. I'm your meathead interpreter.
Yeah, when I can't say words, you're like, okay, let me try to figure out what he said there. He wasn't really talking in English.
Believe it or not, that's me a lot of the times. I have a lot of those moments. But we have a fun one today. One I'm pretty pumped about because I know it's no secret where I stand. But again, I'm curious kind of where you fall on it. So the talk, and you can give the backstory if you want to, entirely up to you. But the talk we want to dive into is progressions and regressions. You've heard us talk about them on episodes prior. Do they exist, or are they a myth, or are they just kind of dressed up language for variation? What is it all about? I'm going to start by saying I firmly believe in progressions and regressions, but it depends on how you're bucketing those things, right? So if we're talking about a squat pattern, I think a logical progression would be your bodyweight squat to a goblet squat of some style to a front squat or a back squat. That's kind of a natural progression.
Yeah.
And yes, those are also variations, but they're variations with increasing intensity, increasing load. I mean, there's a lot of ways that they are tougher than the exercises prior. It's why they're progressions. But if we're talking about bench press versus a squat, those are two very different patterns. So, of course, now we're talking about variety. It's not like, well, I'm going to
Yeah.
progress your goblet squat to a barbell bench press. Absolutely not. What are we talking about here, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
there's apples to oranges, there's variety in that sense, but I think there's absolutely progressions and regressions, and they're part of any coach's system. So, if you don't have them, again, everyone has a different training background and lens, but I stand by those. And at one point in time, you did too. I'm curious if you do still.
Yeah, you think I don't? You think I've just thrown away all the shit that we?
Been a long time since I coached side by side with you, Luke.
Yeah, that is true. I would definitely say that I am like the sole survivor at where I am now, where I am the one that's still believes in progressions and regressions. Um, I would say that's kind of where this is stemming from. Is just in the places I've been, like at Ohio Northern and other places. It's just been a difference of opinion, and that's great, right? And that's why we have a podcast, and that's why
True.
people listen to things, and you want to be educated from people with different opinions. So I would say, yeah, the biggest thing is the belief that you don't want to call something a regression or a progression, because then it could have a negative connotation or a positive connotation, but you don't want to have that effect on the training for the client, which I don't know. We could talk more about that. Like, I think from a lot of people, like, that idea is more of just like trying to market whatever you're saying. The language is important to the client. Now, I would argue that to me doesn't matter, because I mean, regression, sure. Like, I don't know if I'd call something a regression. I would call something maybe a variation. Um, just for the sense of like not trying to bring down any of my clients, not trying to bring down any of my athletes too. Like, if they can't do something to the standard I want, I don't want them to like double down and feel super shitty. And then like I say, hey, we're regressing this, because regressing it can have connotation to it.
Humbling.
Yeah, yeah. And I think a lot of athletes aren't ready to be that humbled, right? And that's why we've talked about this, and I've worked with different athletes, and football is always an interesting one, because you come in and they already feel like they're in a place where they can't do wrong, and they are already super strong and that kind of stuff. And then you get them in a position where, like, hey, you can't squat parallel. What's going on? And then the weight's too heavy. And then it's like, okay, we have to regress this. And to them, that's like, oh, you're singling me out. Like, fuck you. You know what I mean? Like, this strength coach is just giving me a hard time. And there's a lot of things where like it becomes more of a mental piece, um, which is part of training. So I would say in that aspect, it has some value, but in other aspects, I think it just confuses everyone too. Because I would say, like you're saying, like, I would rather have a very streamlined approach to what I think the easiest exercise is, and how we can go in ways to progress this, whether that is adding different load from, if we're talking squat, I think the squat's kind of the easiest one to like progression wise, right? Like goblet squat to a hands-free front squat to a front squat. So that would just get them in the positions of those new movements. Then like I think back squat has the hardest load on the body. So then that's where I think if we're moving in loads, that's how I would go. Um, and then like you can get into more like different bars, whatever after that. But that's like double leg, right? And then there's other ways that you can progress things. You can progress things stability wise and go from like a back squat to a split squat, like a barbell on their back, and they can do a split squat, or like other things like that. Like there's variation in that kind of stuff too, I guess. You know what I mean?
You said something interesting early on, so I want to stop you before you got too far from your point.
Yes. Yeah.
You talked about the language when we're coach facing versus the language when we're client facing.
Yeah.
And that's a big differentiator. So when we're talking you to me, I think it's a must that we can say, hey, so and so, talking about youth athletes, so and so squatted like not well at all. So we need
Yeah.
to regress this goblet squat to a bodyweight squat, and we need to get control of that pattern. As a coach, it's like, great, I know where I'm picking up with this athlete, this client. We'll work from there. So I think you have to have it amongst coaches at the very least.
Yes.
In front of
No, that's a good point.
clients, in front of clients though, I for the most part would. I don't even know if I would steer away from. I would probably lean into progression, regression still, and it's all in how you dress it up. So if you walk up to a client, and like I would say to you as a coach, hey, so and so didn't squat well at all. We need to regress it. I would never walk up and say, hey, you didn't squat well at all, so I'm going to regress your squat, because, like you said, they're going to not just be humbled, they're going to feel a sense of shame, embarrassment, and probably not want to come back to your gym. But what I would do is say, hey, we're going to regress this exercise because what I'm looking for here, I'm not seeing yet.
Yeah.
Because I'm your coach and I care about you, I want to first make sure that you're safe.
Yeah.
Second, I want to make sure they're pursuing the goal that we're after. And to do that, we need to take one step back now so that we can take 2 steps forward down the road. Are you with me on this? Most athletes are going to be like, yeah, coach, that's a good call. I get it. I get where you're coming from. And there's other exercises too. We've coached, take a skater squat, for example, where you put the tennis ball in the crease of the knee, the back knee, and you say, hey, if that tennis ball drops, I'm not going to be upset. But that's a very clear, right in front of your face sign that we cannot do this exercise well enough yet. And they say, okay, I got it. I'll step up to that challenge. Sure enough, the first rep, back toe drops, the ball rolls away. They say, all right, coach, I'll go to this other exercise. Or a single leg squat is the same, right?
Yep.
I want you to lift your leg up. We're going to squat down to the box with a mat or 2 or whatever on it. I want you to come back up. And how many athletes have we seen squat down and they look like you just put super glue down? They don't come back up.
Yeah.
And it's a very, very clear, hey, we're not ready right now for this exercise. We have to regress it. We have to. I would say that to them. I would. But again, it's all in how you dress it up.
Yes.
Right? If you throw it in their face, hey, we're regressing you because you can't do it. Well, yeah, I mean, that's just bad phrasing. There are coaches out there that do that. And I think it's cringy to see. It's terrible to see. But if you dress it from a point of caring all day long, and when you tell an athlete, hey, your goblet squat looks so good, we're actually going to progress you in a front squat next. I want to see how you do with that. What athlete isn't going to feel jazzed up? I get to do the next toughest thing. That's so cool. That's so exciting.
Yeah.
So I would actually lean into that. That's just me though. I'm a very wordy guy, so I mean I would all day long step into that talk and try to dress it up for him in that way. But some young coaches out there, yeah, if you can't navigate that, don't go telling your athlete you're regressing if you can't tell them why.
Yes. And I really like that too. And I think that that is coming from a place of us understanding that. And that's why regression and progression is important, because you need to understand where to go, right? Like it's like the real basic textbook stuff that you need to understand so we can like get out of the mold and then have that understanding and talk about the reasons why we can change that and maybe call it a variation if we want to call it a variation. But if we don't have a clear line and we're not in a communication that like these are the things that we're looking for and this is how we're moving on and changing exercises to progress or to regress, I think that is key. And to call it just, in my opinion, to call it all variation is just, it doesn't do it justice, because then it does, especially if you're a new coach or into a new system, it doesn't give you much feedback on where to go, right? And if we're in a position where they're loading up things really well, you might not have an understanding of where to go and why to go that way,
Yeah. I mean, that's like, and I'm not a big car guy, but that's like saying I went out and I got a new car. It's like, congrats. That's cool, I guess. Versus, hey, I went out and I bought a Lamborghini. It's like, whoa, that's crazy, man. That's awesome. It's like, why wouldn't you categorize the things that you're doing to make it mean more to the client and to get you and your coach on the same page? It's just, it is correct that it's variation, right? A Lamborghini is a car, but it's a super car. It's a whole different classification of car. So it's like, yeah, I think that verbiage is important. But something that I was thinking of is I might actually steer out of the progression and regression thing with private adult training clients more often than with athletes, because a lot of times when you have adult clients, I want to do the toughest thing. And it's the same way with, youth athletes or just athletes in general. But it's like, I've had many clients that I've known upon meeting them, give me the hardest thing you got. Give me the toughest thing you got. I want to do the most, grueling exercise. And I choose to believe that's well intentioned, right? They want a good challenge, but a good challenge is training sensibly for a long period of time. That's the challenge you should be hunting down.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, why do you want to do this the hardest thing? It's like I just want to, I want to prove that I can do it. I want to get stronger and da da da. It's like you can get stronger with a goblet squat. Food for thought. You can get
Yeah.
stronger with a very basic landmine goblet squat. It doesn't have to be this really complex. I want to do an overhead squat. My goodness, that's what a starting place, And so I think a lot of clients, when they hear progression, regressions, I want more, more, more. I want to do the toughest, the hardest
Yeah.
thing. And it's like, that's not really what training is about. But I think social media would have us believe that it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like this was something earlier in my career, always just trying to push to that next step in our progression chart or whatever, and always trying to get to that next step as quick as we can. And I felt that now looking back on that, it's okay to do a goblet squat for 4 weeks and really master that movement. And you can load the crap out of that, and it can be really hard, right? And then you can move on to the next thing after we've done that for a while. But to jump and jump and jump and jump, you won't see the results that you want, I think. You know what I mean? Like and I've found this too with a lot of my adult clients. Like, yeah, sure, we could be doing things that look more challenging and could be called a progression. But if we can stay here and like really master this movement, like push-ups, for example, like if we can get really quality push-ups in, then everything else will get easier. And then we can then we could go to a bar if we wanted to. But you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, respecting progressions and the time that they take opens doors down the road to do the more advanced stuff
yes.
safely. Um, and to those listening, progressions and regressions can look different in a lot of ways, right? We could be toying with the pattern itself, like we've talked about all episode. It could be challenging and progressing depth, right? So for skater squats, maybe we start with 3 pads. Maybe that's what we can do well.
Yeah.
And then we move to 2 pads, and then
Yeah.
we move to
Range of
1 pad. And
motion.
eventually,
Yep.
you're going all the way to the ground. That's really tough to do and do right. So it could be, depth and range of motion. It could be time under tension, right? This week we're going to squat with a 3 second count on the way down. Next week with a 5 second count on the way down. The week after we're going to go 3 down and 3 up.
Yeah.
That's miserable, and that's going to make any exercise more challenging. It could be from a point of stability, bilateral to unilateral supported to unilateral unsupported. That's a progression. So yeah, I think everyone's just wants the hardest thing, and that's not where training starts. It takes so long to get there. I've to bring us back to home base. I fully believe in progressions and regressions, and I can't imagine a world in which you wouldn't use them, need them, or find value in them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. Know the rules, and then know how to break the rules, and know why to break the rules. And we talked a lot about this through the internships and kind of our communication over the years, and I think that's important. And it's something you don't understand at first, and it's something that I still have problems with now. But you can kind of see where like it's easy to be on social media and try to like progress this all the way to seeing somebody do something on a Bosu ball with a single leg. So now you're adding all these different types of progressions, we could call them, right? But sometimes they just need a heavy stimulus. Sometimes they just need really heavy load to get what you want from that exercise.
Yeah, and every coach has different versions of progressions
Yeah.
and different versions of how they regress an exercise. Yeah, I don't know. It sounds like we're on the same page. I'm not going to say I was
Yeah.
surprised, but that's cool.
Yeah, coming from the same background. I think there's things that we have changed our opinions on. For me, for sure. And I think some things like we could call variation, but I like, for example, I do farmers carries a lot, or different carry variations, and we could start with 2 dumbbells farmers carry. We could go to a suitcase carry that is now single arm, right? So now there's a little more of a stability component. Then we might move to a waiter's carry that's even more stability. You know what I mean? And then maybe we just go to heavy like trap bar carry. So then there's a lot of ways that you can call that a progression or regression, but I changed it from a stability. I changed it into more load, more intensity. Um, it's I guess that's just a small variation, and that's going through, like, I'm not just going week to week and changing it. That's like 4 weeks of us really dialing in how we can keep loading and mastering a farmer's carry, and then changing that to a suitcase carry after 4 more weeks, and then 4 more weeks we go to our waiter's carry. You know,
Yeah, yeah. As you were talking through those progressions, it had me thinking about conditioning, conditioning circuits or intervals, and that
yes.
got me thinking about when we do jump training and plyometric training with our
This is a
youth
big one.
athletes.
This
And
is, yeah, sorry,
go
I don't want
ahead.
to cut you off. This is what I think of jump training the same way as we did back when I was an intern. And this is, I like progressions for jump training more than I think I like progressions for anything else. And I would stick to the way that we've been doing it for years and years, where it's jump on a box, right? Then jump over a hurdle, then jump over a hurdle with a pulse so you're fast on the ground, quicker ground contact time, and then 2 continuous jumps. And then if we want to get spicy, then you can go into like depth drops into continuous, or that kind of stuff. But
Think about how many years we saw the athletes that we did and how many times they revisited in order to be able to master those progressions. It's fundamental. I think it's borrowing this phrase. I think it's Brett Bartholomew's fundamentals, not fluff.
yeah,
It's not about the tallest hurdle and doing 20 of them in a row. It's about knowing your regressions, doing them extremely well, progressing them, working through those progressions for the sake of the benefit. And again, that's what coaching is about, right? You understand why you're having them move through those and through those systems. I'm a big fan of it too. And adult clients, I don't do much of it online because I think there's a lot of risk to it
yeah,
potentially. Um, but I absolutely do respect. That's a place where progressions and regressions are just front and center, right in your face, and that's just that. Talking about this brought that up.
yeah. And it's easy too, because it's like you either can do it or you can't, right? And it's something that you have to be really safe with, because we've seen athletes break their ankles and different things from jumping on boxes and hurdles, and if you're not paying attention, and if you're not doing this, and like having it at the front of your mind and coaching it well, and those kind of things, it can easily be something that can be super dangerous. So that's why I think it's super important to progress that and have a reason for it, and not just throw them from this week we're going to do box jumps, and then next week we're going to go just the hurdle jumps. And it's all jump training is good, and all jump training is the
But
same. All jump
but
training is equal. I've heard
but
that
they're all
before.
variations. But they're all variations.
Yeah, they are. That's a good point. They're all variations.
I think you can call them. You can get away with calling them variations when you're dealing with very high level, resilient, already moving well athletes.
Yeah.
That's when you can get away with calling it a variation, and that is the 1% of
Yep.
people. Those are not walking through your average gym. Um, so I was going to say this got me thinking about jump training. When we talk about box jumps, do you coach soft landing or firm landing? Because I've heard it coached both ways,
More
and I'm curious what
variation
your thoughts
here.
are. Yeah, isn't it though?
I've never coached hard landing. I don't know. I think I've heard it being coached that way. I don't know if it's.
Let me clarify, I guess, because you have coached at hard landing where we used to work. That was, the way that we coach it, right? When you
Yes.
land like a statue. That's what I mean by
Yes.
landing hard, landing
I
firm.
see. Okay.
Versus
Um,
some people will say land like a cat, right? Land soft, like flex the joints,
yep.
compress a little bit
Yep.
upon landing. What side of the fence are you falling on here?
I probably fall on that second side, like land. I usually coach at land with your knees bent, in an athletic position. I don't know if that's. I would. I haven't really. That's a good point. I haven't coached it in a way that's like I want you to land and freeze like a statue, or like land and be like a cat. I haven't used those in a while, which is interesting because maybe that's something that I need to kind of revisit in my own kind of coaching of these exercises. But I would say I'm not. I think the biggest thing is just having your knees bent and having it like you have to be in an athletic position. I don't want you to have your legs straight when you land, just because it's going to put more shear force, I think, through like the hip and the knee and things that maybe
This
we
is why we
don't
have
really
to.
want.
This is why we have to do a live episode. So
Yes.
I'm with you in terms of landing in an athletic position with knees bent. I'm same team there. What I mean is, the way we used to coach it together would be landing in that athletic position and landing firm. You freeze, right? You land
Yeah.
in that athletic position with triple flexion, same way
Yep.
you set up. I've seen it coached where a coach will have an athlete jump up onto the box, and kind of as the natural reaction is when your feet land, you kind of, I don't want to say fold because it sounds like you're going to fall off the box, but you kind of,
Yeah.
there's give. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I've never coached it that way. I saw the explanation of it a long time ago. I can't, I don't recall it off the top of my head, but I just think it's interesting because, again, same exercise, box jump and a box jump.
Yeah.
There's even variation within the same exercise.
Yeah.
And again, are we considering one a regression or one a progression? I don't know. Depends on your reasoning. But I've never coached that softer landing
Yeah.
on a box jump. But I know some people do. So I just picking your brain.
Yeah. That is interesting. And I think it has some purpose. I could see where um like you can have more like it's a little more reactionary, right? And you have to like be able to kind of respond to the box a little bit more if your knees are bent. Like really like soft landing.
Yeah.
And that also would make sure that the box is not very high, right? Because there's no way that if you're I don't
Well,
know.
here's what I'm thinking, just thinking out loud, because again,
Yeah.
this is not the way I coach. So I'm trying to see if I can kind of coach through and work through what might be happening there. I would only do that soft landing if you're doing a really, really tall box jump, maybe. If you think about the
There
things
you
that you
go.
see on
Yeah.
social media, you have to have give. No one is setting up a box that's 5, 6 feet tall and landing in the same way they set up.
Yes.
Nobody.
Yes. Yeah.
Nobody. So, I mean, only if you're going to PR a box jump, which again, I would never coach it. That's the only time I can see you landing with all that give to the
Yeah.
joint. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Just something I was picking your brain about, but
Yeah, and I mean, when it gets higher, right, the more range of motion you're gonna have.
you have to.
Like you're gonna be in a full squat when you finish, basically, when you get up to the top of the box. So I had to kind of talk through that one with you. But yeah, that is interesting. And then, I mean, there's a lot of ways to coach jumping over hurdles too, right? And we've talked about this, and like, we kind of have, at least me, I have changed this, especially like I really like the ground contact part of this, where we jump over and you have a pulse and you have to jump over, and instead of just doing like jump and jump, now it's up and 1, 2, and then over the next hurdle 1, 2, right? So your feet have to be moving faster and you have to have fast ground contact time there. But yeah, there's a lot of nuance into this field, and there's a lot of ways to do it, and there's a lot of ways to get the results you want. I guess it's just more of how we argue about shit like this, like progression, regression, variation. If your clients buy in, and that's all you really need.
Yeah. I stand by progressions and regressions, and I think most coaches should. I mean, I don't know. You can get away with calling stuff variation if you want, but I think it's important for the sake of structure to clients, whether
Yeah.
personal training or whether they're athletes. It's what am I doing today? What am I working towards? How do I know that I'm doing well enough here to continue evolving in my training journey? That's the whole point
Yes.
of progression. It's storytelling, right? When I started working out with, Coach Dave or Coach Luke, I was doing a bodyweight squat and I had a little bit of pain. And now I can do a barbell front squat pain free at full depth. That's a narrative of someone's health and
Yes.
fitness journey. That's not, well, I did a bodyweight squat, but then I tried a goblet squat for variation and it hurt. So then we did a barbell back squat. Well, that hurt. But then we moved on to a landmine squat, which also hurt, but that's a lot of variation. So now I'm trying bodyweight squats. Like there's no
Yeah.
system to it, right?
Yes.
So I think it's important for the sake of leading someone through their fitness journey and helping them to get to whatever goal they have.
Yeah, systems are important. I guess that's a good way to end that too. I really like how you kind of wrapped that and talked about that as well. I think that's kind of the biggest point, is that you have to have things in place. And like that's the difference between me and I feel like somebody that's just like off the street and is just doing it to do it because they saw it on YouTube or whatever. And it's like, well, that's a variation, right? Because they don't understand what a regression and a progression is, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. You're only as good as your systems. I'm a firm
Yeah.
believer in that. And if you don't have them, good luck to you because you need
Yeah.
it.
Take some time and make them. That's the hardest thing. And we talk about this all the time is
Make them and test them. Make them and test them
there
because
we go.
I
Yeah.
promise you the first iteration is not going to be the magic sauce.
Yes, yes, and systems are good until what did the we had an old boss that said like systems and things are good in I forget now. Holy smokes! It was one
We'll,
of
we'll
the
we'll talk off the pod and figure it out. I know the saying that you're reaching for. I mean, I don't know it, but I have a memory of it as well.
It's like it's good in practice until you actually use it, and then it has to be applied and reapplied and retested and done over again and again and again until you can really understand what you're shooting for. So
All systems are good in theory until they break. Then you revise them and re-implement.
look at that.
That's not the exact phrasing of it, but it's the
It
gist
was
of it.
close, and you made me ramble on for 2 minutes trying to figure out what I was freaking saying, and you
You
had
laid
that
the
in the back.
groundwork. You laid the groundwork for me to be able to throw that out there,
There's the progression of what I just said.
and it goes full circle.
Oh, all right. Have you got
Thanks
through
for
this?
listening.
Yeah,
Oh, take me.
absolutely.
You go for it.
No, that was good. I love all you guys that got through this and appreciate all your listenership. This has been awesome. Great ride. 3, 2, 1. That was good. I thought that was better.
You froze on me. I didn't even see it.
Oh no. All right.